Creatine is one of the few dietary supplements known to have positive effects on various resistance training outcomes. In fact, much of the benefits of creatine are seen in its ability to improve strength and/or power. However, how much benefit does creatine really have on our ability to grow muscle? After recently expressing skepticism about creatine's efficacy and muscle growth, a not-to-be-named follower messaged me claiming I was very wrong on this one and referenced a 2022 review by Wu and colleagues, which analysed 16 studies and concluded that creatine is an effective supplement for muscle growth in healthy young individuals undergoing resistance training. However, when delving deeper beyond the abstract and the conclusions of this paper, I discovered that only 4 of these studies specifically examined the combined effects of creatine supplementation and resistance training on muscle growth. And here's what I found. Among the 4 studies, Candow and colleagues investigated muscle growth in older males using both direct and indirect methods, including B-mode ultrasound and DEXA scans. Interestingly, the authors reported no significant differences in lean soft tissue or muscle thickness after 12 months of creatine supplementation when combined with supervised whole-body resistance training compared to the placebo. Additionally, the authors referenced another study by Candow and colleagues, which purportedly observed significant increases in leg muscle density in the creatine group compared to the placebo. However, upon reviewing the referenced paper, I found that the research of this investigation focused on measuring bone mineral density rather than muscle hypertrophy. So in the review, it was incorrectly referred to as muscle density. Therefore, this paper should not have been cited as supporting evidence for creatine's positive effects on muscle growth. And finally, the remaining 2 studies by Nunes and colleagues and Ribeiro and colleagues reported modest increases in lean body mass as measured by indirect methods like DEXA following 8 weeks of resistance training combined with creatine supplementation. The limitation of these last 2 studies lies in their use of DEXA to assess muscle growth. DEXA cannot distinguish between muscle tissue and other non-fat components like water and glycogen. And since creatine acts as a potent osmolyte, its supplementation leads to increased intracellular water retention within muscle cells. This water retention can confound, or in simpler terms, muddy the interpretation of creatine's effects, as DEXA scans can overestimate muscle growth by attributing the added water weight to lean mass, potentially resulting in inaccurate assessments of actual muscle hypertrophy. Furthermore, given the 8-week duration of the 2 remaining studies, it's likely that DEXA lacks the sensitivity to accurately detect minor variations in muscle mass within such short time periods. So, upon closer examination of the data, the purported benefits of creatine on muscle growth actually appear far less definitive than the review abstract suggests. Now, a more recent review, however, by Burke and colleagues, examined the effects of creatine supplementation combined with resistance training on regional measures of muscle hypertrophy. Regional measures of muscle hypertrophy provide a more accurate representation of changes in muscle size and include assessments such as B-mode ultrasound, MRI, and CT scans. The researchers analysed a total of 10 studies that met their inclusion criteria and concluded that creatine supplementation may have trivial to small effects on regional skeletal muscle growth. So what this means is researchers have found some benefit of supplementing with creatine combined with resistance training. However, the effect was rather modest in comparison to the placebo. And to take the analysis one step further, the researchers conducted a sub-comparison to see if creatine had greater effects on the upper or lower body. And what they found was ultimately there are no differential effects of creatine on upper body or lower body muscle hypertrophy. So what can you take away from these 2 recent review papers on creatine and muscle growth? Well, first of all, not all papers carry the same weight of evidence. In fact, interpreting data can be extremely challenging due to the differences in methodologies and underlying assumptions across disciplines. And this can lead to misinterpretations or oversimplification when applying findings from one field to another. Additionally, without a deep understanding of the specific context and nuance of a particular area, there's always a risk for overlooking critical factors that could influence the data's relevance or accuracy. Now, I've pointed out potential limitations numerous times in recent publications, specifically in the area of muscle growth literature. In the context of creatine, a reliance on lean body mass changes as measured by indirect methods such as DEXA or InBody may lead to the conclusion that creatine enhances muscle growth. However, if you rely on studies with more direct muscle imaging, the data is much less compelling. While creatine supplementation combined with resistance training can lead to modest increases in muscle mass, the effects are relatively small compared to a placebo, and there at least seems to be some potential for a small benefit when looking at data examining regional specific changes in muscle size, meaning data may suggest that creatine supplementation may have more pronounced impacts on upper body muscle hypertrophy than on lower body hypertrophy. So what are my key takeaways? Well, creatine may slightly enhance muscle growth, but it is not a game changer compared to resistance training alone. Second, studies using indirect measurements like DEXA and InBody can often overestimate muscle gains due to the osmotic effect of creatine and water retention within a muscle. The biggest benefits of creatine remain strength and power improvements, which may indirectly support muscle growth over time. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and if you found this video helpful, make sure you give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and share it to help spread the word. And if you have any questions about creatine, feel free to drop me a comment below.